And welcome to another little discussion about the way the storyline of Battle for Azeroth is going. Makes a change from talking about gameplay features recently. Now, it's quite important just to explain what this video is going to be about. Sort of going to be in three parts. It comes down to choice. You know, in World of Warcraft, in BfA, there's been a few little situations where, in theory, some of us have had a choice, but it's not a real choice. And there's something coming in patch 8.1 which people are describing as at last we're getting a real choice. Whereas actually it's the least of choices that there's ever been in World of Warcraft. It's important to note that what I'm talking about is a storyline that is currently available on the PTR for 8.1. As such, it's not in live, so it's a spoiler. So first reason I need to mention that if you don't want to hear any spoilers about any storyline, sorry, don't watch this video. The second reason I need to point out is because it's on the PTR, there may be things that change before it goes live as well. So what I'm talking about now may well, the essence of it will still absolutely be valid, but some of the specifics may change in the next month or so. So the three parts I'm going to split this into. First of all, what prompted me to do this in the way that I'm going to do it is actually a comment on a video I put out yesterday. So I want to go through that comment because there's a few things in there I really want to talk about, and it relates to other MMOs as well. In the second part, I want to talk about just about the nature of choice in general in World of Warcraft and how it relates to RPGs. And then the third part is where I want to talk specifically about the Fang storyline. Now, if all you're interested in is my thoughts on the Fang storyline, then I've put a link, a timestamp in the description below. Click on that and it'll go straight to it. So first of all, if we just have a look at the comment first of all, I'll read it through. This is a little bit like doing the mailbox again. So it says, for the first time in 14 years, you actually get a choice. This is the first RPG thing ever put into World of Warcraft. Now, as I'm going to point out, it actually isn't. I don't just mean because it's the first thing they've ever put in. This is like, of all the faux choices, the illusions of choice we've ever had, this isn't even an illusion of choice. It says, WoW was never an MMO RPG. It was just an MMO. The RPG element was non-existent. Now, that's an interesting point because I think anyone who's just played MMOs maybe as their only, which would be very unlikely, I would think, but as their only lead into role-playing games in general, may not really know what all the fuss is about. But if you've come from a background of role-playing games, either tabletop, Dungeons and Dragons type things, or whether it's been single-player role-play games on the computer, then yes, something like World of Warcraft, you have no real choice. Your only choice is, do you want to do this quest or not? And then sometimes you don't even get that choice. Some quests you just have to do, and that's all there is to it. The events will always pan out to be the same. So it is, and if you view, and I would be of the same mind, that really in a role-playing game there should be choice. I don't think it's not a role-playing game if you don't. End of the day, role-playing game is are you playing a role? Well, we are playing a role. But in some MMOs, people talk about them as either being sandbox, which means that you've got an awful lot of autonomy as a player to build the world around you as you would. And then you've got theme park where everything's on rails. And sometimes you get games where it's sort of round about that blurring of the lines. And some people will say it's sandbox and some people say, no, it's theme park. No one's been in any doubt ever that World of Warcraft is a theme park MMO. Strictly on rails. It always has been. Always has been, really. So what they then go on to say is, choosing Scryan or Aldor in Chateau City didn't matter. Neither was choosing the Frenzy Heart or the Fish People in Sholazar Basin. Actually, I'm going to say the Scryer or Aldor was the most choice we have ever had in this game. And it includes what's coming in 8.1. With Scryer and Aldor, we chose our faction and we got a series of quests that were unique to that faction. You wouldn't be able to do those same quests if you chose the other side. And it sort of, to a certain extent, changed the world. Because then there was a portion of Chateau City was hostile to you when you chose one path and the other part friendly. Yes, later on you could switch sides, so to speak, or work towards switching sides, and you'd be able to do it the other way around. So it wasn't much choice in the grand scheme of things, but it nonetheless was a choice that had some tangible effect on some part of the world. It determined which bank you could go to in Shattered City. It's not much, but it was at least something. I would argue that what we've had in BfA isn't even that. But anyway, I'm just going to go on to a couple of other things. So it says, choices should matter in an RPG. I would agree with that. I do understand that it's difficult in an MMO. In an MMO it is difficult, but I'll come to that when I've read the statement. It says, maybe this is the first time that choice matters to your story. If you want a good example of an MMORPG done right, Star Wars The Old Republic, play any of the 8 class stories and you can see what Blizzard should have done well. That's debatable. But in Star Wars The Old Republic, for those who are not familiar with it, when you play a class through, there's 8 classes. It has a storyline that's specific to that class. And it is, from an RPG point of view, very, very good. It's still very much on rails, though. And although it talks about choices, yes, technically you get a choice. A lot of it ends up in the same place. Now, there may be some difference at some point. So there is some choice. It's not all illusionary. But nonetheless, the basic storyline still follows. It doesn't diverge very much. But then here comes another point. It says, although I wouldn't do the Jedi Consulate, it's boring. And there is your problem as well with that sort of thing. In some ways, it's really good. Oh, you've got this class story. And when I level up a different character, I'm going to have a different experience. And it is a very different experience leveling up, even though some quests will be the same. Because your class quest is very different for different classes, you are going to have a different leveling experience. That's fantastic. But if you don't like one because it's boring, and you want to play that class though, sorry, you are robbed then of your choice to ignore that class quest. That's the downside to it. In an MMO, it's very difficult, of course, because the world has to be the world. In a single-player role-playing game, you can change the world radically. I had a friend who played Morrowind back in the day. I never played that. And the way he described it, it was, very free as a role-playing game. Doesn't really work in an MMO. And you look at the Elder Scrolls Online, which I also think is excellent. And there is choice in there once or twice. But because it's an MMO, that world needs to basically look the same. Remember what happened when we had phasing of zones? Wrath of the Lich King first introduced it. You'd have a situation there if you were grouped with someone and you'd completed more of a storyline than someone else in that same zone, you'd be separated out because the world looked different to each of you. And that's no good for an MMO. So that's where some of the difficulty of it lies. Now, you could have a similar sort of thing to like the Garrison, I suppose, where, you have differences in the world, and then if you're in a group, then it's the leader's version of the world that you see. But even then, you can't have storylines divert too much. I mean, what if, for example, we made choices that meant that at the start of Legion, Sylvanas wasn't made war chief for one person, but was for another? You can't handle that in an MMO. But anyway, so there's the comment on it. Now, in terms of other things that I would say about choice and where choice is an illusion, because this ties very much in here. So let's look at BfA first of all, where we've had a choice. And I say we, what I really mean is Horde, because I haven't noticed anything like this really for the Alliance side. All of this is Horde as far as I can tell. So first of all, the Siege of Lordaeron. There was a point at which the Blight was being deployed. Now, as a Horde player, you were given a mask to protect you from the Blight. So you go out and you attack the Alliance players, but you're protected from the Blight. Well, I say Alliance players, Alliance NPCs, I apologise. But you were given the option. You could also have a Blight spreader. So you could be the one spreading the Blight, or you could choose only the mask, please. In other words, you were taking the decision, no, because I am one of those members of the Horde that is dead against the Blight, so I'm not going to spread it. Except even that was a false choice for two reasons. One, you still waded out into the Blight, attacking Alliance NPCs who were overcome by the Blight. That's not a very honourable, from an Orc honour point of view especially, and not that I played an Orc, I was a Blood Elf. As far as I'm concerned, they can be as conniving as they like. But that Lok'tar Guard nonsense is not really commensurate with going out there, because you're still protected from it. You've still got an advantage over this thing you're supposed to be against. So you didn't really have an option. All right, sure, I suppose you could have just gone AFK and let everyone else deal with it. But you are nonetheless complicit in the Blight being spread, even if you yourself weren't spreading it. And then the second thing, of course, it made no difference to the story. The Blight was still going to be spread, come what may. So there was no choice there. Then there's another little storyline, because there's a couple of storylines in 8.1 where you get a choice at least. Again, Horde side. So for the Darkshore Warfront questline as Horde, a Warden attacks you. And, you know, and you fight them, which you'd expect to do. You know, you're carrying out work on the part of the Horde, and you are attacked by an Alliance NPC, so you attack them. Then at the end of it, instead of killing her, which would be perfectly honourable, I mean, she attacked me, I fought her, I'm going to kill her. That's fine, that's all fine. But no, we don't. We just leave her at the edge of death. Nathanos orders you to kill her, and we get the choice of basically doing it or saying, no, actually, I'm not going to do that. After which Nathanos does it anyway. So again, there's no choice there. The same thing happens. The Warden still ends up dead. But the other thing in this case, this isn't even... Because what the choice is supposed to do is it's supposed to allow you to ally either with Sylvanus' view of the Horde or with Saurfang's view of the Horde. But if you're aligning yourself with Saurfang in that same situation, okay, he didn't kill Malfurion, but he didn't kill Malfurion because it wasn't his fight, it was Sylvanus' fight. Here, the Warden, if we were Saurfang, he's just doing his business, Warden comes along and attacks him. Okay, he's up to no good, fine. But nonetheless, the Warden has attacked him. He's fought her in single combat and won. He would absolutely kill her. Absolutely. She didn't beg for mercy or anything. So it's not even a choice from that point of view. It's a non-choice. So now we come to the Saurfang story itself as it is. Okay, so this is where it's major spoilers. So first of all, we go to Sylvanus. It transpires that Saurfang has escaped from Stormwind Stockades. Now, I mean, this is quite interesting itself. I'll bring you up with the story. In fact, I'll just keep that playing for now. Because we didn't really know what happened to Saurfang after we went into the jail. We just left him there. Now, I thought that was very strange because surely he could easily have broken out following in our wake, but he didn't. It transpires he didn't, but he escaped himself later on. So what happens is we end up going to Stormwind to meet up with a Dark Ranger here. And first of all, she said, do you notice anything suspicious? The first suspicious thing I noticed was level 120 Crocolisks around Stormwind. But there you go. Then we end up attacking some SI7 who are there in the area, also tracking Saurfang. We follow him to Red Ridge Mountains, where a little bit of magic turns us into a girl with a pretty pink frock. Isn't that nice? So we're trying to find some information from the various Alliance NPCs around here. The slightly odd thing was, if I just show you going up the old steps here, I got that just in the right place, is even though I'm a Horde player, you know, I clicked on this fella, because a guard basically told me, oh, go and see the watch captain at the top, and I thought, oh, okay then. There's an Alliance quest, a low-level Alliance quest that I could actually take. I didn't take it. I was busy around here. So you carry on. You've got your information. You end up, you know, basically trying to track Saurfang down. You get spotted by a load of dogs that now realise you're Horde. Oh, dear, I've gone too far. And then we meet up with Zappy Boy, which I'm not happy about because I'm sure I killed him. He's dead. Bloody trolls. He must be a shaman. I suppose he's a shaman. Reincarnating when I'm not looking. Anyway, the bottom line is he pops out and says, because you were told by the Dark Ranger, she's now going to go and track Sao Fang. She knows where he is, he's in the Swamp of Sorrows. You're told, go back. Go back to Sylvanas. But then Zappy Boy jumps out and says, Sao Fang's out in the Swamp of Sorrows. And the Dark Ranger isn't going to take him back to the Horde. She is going to kill him, basically. And we mustn't let this happen. Whose side are you on? So here's where your choice comes in. So you can either choose to say, no, I'm loyal to Sylvanas, or you can choose to go along with Zappy Boy and say, yeah, do you know what? I want to protect Sao Fang. He's the future of the Horde. Which is not actually true, but I'll come to that in a bit. So the situation is, obviously I chose to do the, I'm with Sao Fang type thing. You go along there with a standoff, Sao Fang in a little hut, and a standoff there with the Dark Ranger and a load of others, Forsaken as well. Now at this point, there's certainly no choice at this encounter. You don't get, now that you've heard both sides, you've seen what's going on, you don't get to really change your mind about anything. I suppose you could abandon the quest, go back and change then maybe, but in the here and now, there is no changing of it. You know, nothing happens until, you know, you say, right, let's get going here. You obviously kill the Dark Rangers and everything. And then what Sao Fang says is, well, you're implicated here. You need to go back to Sylvanas, but we need to make it look like I beat you up. So he basically lays you out. And then you go back to Sylvanas. Now, here's the thing. So here's where the choice comes in. So I chose to side with Sao Fang in this. And you get a toy out of it and all the rest of it. And you go back to Sylvanas. Sylvanas isn't very happy at all with you. But, you know, she buys the story. The alternative is you said from the beginning, no, I'm with Sylvanas. I'm loyal to Sylvanas. At which point you just... I didn't play this through, but I just got it from Wowhead. You just go back to Sylvanas and the same thing happens, except this time she's not pissed off with you. She just says, oh, you know, the Dark Ranger's sorting him out. Now, although in theory in this quest you might think to yourself, oh, so we've saved Sao Fang, as if he's dead if we don't choose that. That won't be the case, though. Who believes that? No, that won't happen. Because Sao Fang has obviously got a story still to come. So we have made no choice at all. And also in terms of the theoretical choice, this theoretical choice that we're siding with Sao Fang or Sylvanas, even though the events that play out will be completely unchanged as a result of it, even that's not a choice, because put it this way. If you choose to side with Sylvanas, you go back to Sylvanas, you get a couple of gold, and you get some Azerite, some artifact power, basically. If you choose to side with Sao Fang, you still get your artifact power, the same amount. You still get your gold, same amount. But you get a toy as well. I'll have the toy, please. Because it's basically your choice is this in a loot-driven game. Toy, no toy. Who chooses no toy? Seriously. This reminds me again of one of those little choices in Elder Scrolls Online where you go through a quest line with the Mad God, God of Schemes, whatever the hell he is, and Sheogorath. And at the end of it, he's basically brainwashed a mage. And you get the choice at the end of it. You get to say, no, I'm taking this mage back. You've brainwashed her. She doesn't really want to be here. And that's the end of it. Or, well, she's saying she wants to stay with you. So, all right, she can stay with you. Even though you know full well she's brainwashed. Now, my natural inclinations in that situation would be to go, of course, you've brainwashed her. We're bringing her back. But the rewards for letting her stay, way better. Which one do I choose? Of course I choose that. Another example from another RPG, and this is, although you can do it multiplayer, is not an MMO. It's Baldur's Gate. In Baldur's Gate 2 specifically, there's a situation where you're told by what you know to be corrupt officials that there's a ranger who's a fugitive from justice. You need to go and apprehend him and bring him back. Dead or alive, doesn't really matter. Now, you eventually, the reason they want him back is because they need his body to open up a planar sphere. So you go out there. Now, the good thing to do would be to listen to his story as you would normally and go, oh, yeah, you're innocent. I shouldn't kill you. The problem with that is the only way then to get into the planar sphere where there is mega loot is either to have him join your party. Well, I had my party and I quite liked it. I didn't really want him mucking it up. Or you kill him, take his body and use his body yourself. Guess what I did? Yeah. You know, so in any situation, loot will always light the way, really. Quite frankly. So it isn't a choice. But the other thing is, let's say for the sake of argument, because we don't know, this is all that's in the PTR at the moment, we don't know what is to come in terms of the Fang Sylvanas story, but for two things. So first of all, let us imagine that later on, let's say in patch 8.2, there's another storyline related to Fang, and it remembers our choice, and the quest we get at that point depends on what we chose in 8.1. So you would say in that situation, okay, our choice then led to a difference because we get a different quest. But it's still a false choice because the basic quest line will still follow the same rails. Choosing one thing or another isn't going to kill Fang off or kill Sylvanas off until they're ready to be killed off in the main storyline, if they ever are. And the other thing to point out that when it comes to Fang and Sylvanas, neither of these are going to be the head of the Horde in the next expansion because Blizzard, in an interview they did a while ago, a couple of months ago now, talked about a new Horde emerging in BfA, and they specifically described Sylvanas and Fang as representing different aspects of the old Horde. So, you know, they're both going to have a major storyline in BfA, which is, as far as leadership of the Horde going to go, you assume, fizzle out for reasons that I've predicted but could be wrong. But nonetheless, they have said that both of those represent the old Horde and there's a new Horde coming. You know, you can read into that what you will, but there's only one thing I read into that. And so nothing you choose is going to affect that because it'll be the same story for everyone. Everyone will experience the same conclusion to that storyline, regardless of your choices. So there's still no choice. You're not changing the world at all. You're not changing anything. The best you can hope for is that you will change a quest. But that quest will still run parallel to the quest that the people who chose the other thing will have as well. Because the same basic major events will still have to happen for it to make any sense at all. So there is no choice coming in 8.1. There are 2 times when you'll click on a speech bubble on a quest thing and have the illusion of choice, one of which doesn't even make sense, and the other of which is no choice at all. All you're really choosing is, do you want a toy or do you not want a toy? I'll have the toy. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share for further content. Until next time, I'll see you later.